In Marin County, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge, is a site that helped usher in a new era in the way America and the world communicated.
This is such a beautiful part of America with the most amazing views of the Pacific Ocean.
Lots of people pass through this area. Maybe they're on a hike, they're going surfing, but they're completely oblivious to the rich history of this site.
One feature of the landscape that is hard to ignore is a collection of tall, thin masts. But there are other things here that are harder to spot.
Down near the coast, there's this large, abandoned-looking building hidden amongst the trees.
Once upon a time, it concealed a revolutionary machine.
In that far building, it was truly Frankenstein stuff. High voltage, sparks, and it sent an enormous bolt of electricity through that antenna.
And it was called into action on a momentous day.
One of the most dramatic events in American history has a direct link to this site, but it's one that actually gets left out in history lessons.
On the Pacific coast, just north of San Francisco, two large buildings stand at either end of a vast plot of land.
One is in serious disrepair. The second one is a gorgeous white Art Deco-style building.
You can see the wires coming off the masts and going into the white building, so it's beginning to become clear that this is some sort of radio communication site.
Written on one side is RCA Communications, Inc., the Radio Corporation of America. They built this communications hub between 1929 and 1931.
Inside, you've got these old machines that are still working and humming away.
It's kind of this, treasure trove of old radio tech, which is really cool.
But the story here begins in the fields to the northeast, with the few remaining pieces of a pioneering structure.
In the early teens of the last century, nothing that we see behind us existed. But they decided this was the spot that they would build their radio station.
Richard Dillman, chief operator of today's station, knows how to untangle the old from the new.
What we see here is the base of one of the antenna masts that were here in this field. We see how big it was in diameter, and it was 300 feet tall, and it was just one of 9 of these massive structures.
These giant towers with these concrete foundations, and they're huge and impressive, but they're just there to support the cable, which is actually how the messages are transmitted.
The company in charge of the site was owned by one of the most celebrated scientists of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Guglielmo Marconi.
Marconi was an engineer, inventor, and entrepreneur, and eventual Nobel Prize-winning scientist. One of his greatest contributions to science was he discovered how to send and receive Morse code without wires.
So this wireless technology was revolutionary, and it paved the way for all the technology that we see before us now. The little devices that we now carry with us everywhere, as a matter of course, all have their roots in the technology that was pioneered here at this site.
The original antennas at Bolinas were erected by Marconi in 1914, with the purpose of sending Morse code messages wirelessly across the Pacific. But this site was part of something even bigger, a global long-wave radio network.
The plan was to have several high-powered stations that would sort of girdle the world and basically provide instantaneous communication from any point across the globe.
The antennas were just one piece of the puzzle. It was only when they were hooked up to the building nearer the coast that their full potential was realized.
This building today is in a sad state of disrepair. Few people know it's here, and fewer still know what it was for. but in fact it played a significant role in Marconi's plan for global communications.
This building was the powerhouse of the transmitting antennae that was outside.
To transmit signals over the vast distances that Marconi wanted, a huge amount of energy needed to be generated.
This is the beating heart of the Marconi transoceanic transmitting system. We're standing right here where this machinery was located, and it was enormous, loud, dangerous, high voltage equipment.
Once the powerful primary signal had been produced, it was then tuned before being sent along cables to the antenna field, where it would then be broadcast.
One of the main destinations for these communications was another Marconi station on Hawaii.
Hawaii is the gateway radio communication to the rest of the world. So if you get to Hawaii, you can get everywhere else.
But just 9 years into the life of the Bolinas long-wave radio station, Marconi made a scientific breakthrough that had major consequences.
In 1923, he developed a shortwave beam system. This had many advantages over the long-wave system.
Shortwave was much more power efficient, had far higher quality, and could travel much further distances.
The arrival of shortwave technology is kind of the beginning of the end of the original transmitting station. It wasn't set up to take advantage of this new wave that was coming through.
A newer station further inland was built, leaving this one overshadowed.
The original transmitting station fell largely into disuse, but it wasn't completely shut down.
The new technology, the shortwave technology, worked great, but it was fickle. The old technology was solid. It was there all the time. It might have been slow and it might have been expensive, but it always got through.
And in 1941, the trustworthy Bolinas transmitting station stepped up when America was on the brink of catastrophe.
In the latter months of 1941, it became apparent that there might be a conflict in the Pacific between America and the Empire of Japan.
On December 7th at 12:48 p.m. in Washington, General Marshall ordered the following message to be sent to Hawaii immediately. The Japanese are presenting at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today what amounts to an ultimatum. Just what significance the hour set may have, we do not know, but be on alert accordingly.
Marshall intended to send the message via the Army radio, but the shortwave transmission failed due to atmospheric conditions.
The Army radio system was not up to the job, but they knew that this antique technology would get the message across, and that's how the message was sent through this building to Hawaii.
They were in urgent need of a powerful long-wave transmitter, and Bolinas stepped in to save the day.
The message arrived at 7:33 a.m. Honolulu time. The attack began 22 minutes later. But for some reason, the message wasn't flagged as urgent and wasn't decoded and delivered to the Pacific Fleet HQ for another 7 hours.
So it arrived on the desks of Admiral Kimmel and General Short as the Japanese planes were retreating towards their carriers, and they did not get the message in time. There's a great unanswered mystery. The priority stamp was not put on that message.
More than 2,400 Americans died in the attack and another 1,000 people were wounded. But how much difference it would have made if the message was read earlier is questionable.
Admiral Kimmel and General Short were under very strict orders about what they could do in the way of preparation to avoid the appearance of a panic on the island. So how much of a change it would have made, that's open to debate.
In the decades following World War II, both buildings were refitted with newer transmitters before finally ceasing operations in the 1970s.